Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know that there's all these hard choices we have to make on these panels. It's kind of a challenge sometimes to pick what you want to go to. I appreciate you choosing this one. My name's Jason. I'm a reporter at the Colorado Sun, and this is my friend Drew Petersen. Drew has been a inspiration to me for a long time, and I'm really stoked to talk to him anytime I see him. He is one of the most inspiring people that I know, and he fills his community and his world with such joy. And I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
I've been reading Jason's byline since I was a little kid. I was born and raised in Colorado, and so it's pretty neat to become friends with, someone whose byline you've been reading for a really long time. And I think that the coolest part about our friendship is how true both of us are to our communities and to Colorado. So it's pretty cool to get to join you.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun talk. So you grew up in Silverthorne, born and raised. You tend to, you're a rare sort. A lot of those mountain towns have people that have moved there, right? Well, it seems like there's a lot more people in mountain towns who moved there than who grew up there, right? But one of the challenges we heard from Phil Weiser, our AG, on this stage last night, talking about all the different things he's done to improve mental health and how mental health with our youth is one of the most critical crises facing Colorado right now. He's working on cell phones and things like that, limiting cell phone access, finding adults who can sort of step in with kids and be a sounding board for kids who are maybe struggling. Really interesting talk from him, and I'm sure we'll explore this a little bit. But you've moved from professional skiing into expanding, not just displaying your athletic prowess, but also becoming an advocate for mental health and some of the issues that we're facing, and particularly in mountain towns. So this will be a sort of a wide roaming conversation, but want to talk to you. Let's start with sort of your upbringing and what was it like growing up in Summit County as a kid?
It's definitely true that most people, when I tell them I'm from Summit County, don't believe me. It was awesome. I was actually born in Vail because we didn't have a hospital in Summit County 30 years ago, which obviously times have changed a lot, but super fortunate to grow up where I did. I grew up right at the base of Buffalo Mountain, backed up to the National Forest, and so grew up kind of like with the mountains and the forest as my babysitter, sort of. I was born on skis, pretty much. I started skiing when I was 1.5 years old, and got an older brother 2 years older than me, and he and I kind of grew up together, and he was kind of like my guide or mentor for just about everything. When we were little kids, we were allowed to go into the forest alone, so long as we brought our dog with us. And that really was the amazing part of getting to grow up in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. Especially 30 years ago, I think, before things were starting to change here at a more rapid rate. And I think it's kind of interesting, so for those of you listening, I imagine you saw the agenda and you know that we're going to be talking mostly about mental health, but my mental health struggles and the mental health and suicide crisis of the Rocky Mountain West and of mountain towns like my hometown, Silverthorne in Summit County, Colorado, it doesn't invalidate that it's an amazing place to live. It doesn't invalidate what's so great about it. And for me personally, my story, my mental health struggles don't invalidate that I had an amazing childhood and that I grew up in the mountains and got to relish in everything fantastic about that. I think the inverse is really important to realize, and is also true though, is that because we live in these amazing places, it doesn't invalidate that we struggle, because struggle is a shared part of the human experience, no matter who you are. In my advocacy and storytelling, I have found that to be very true. not even 50-year-old white men who say nothing's wrong, who have not struggled. And I think like I want to kind of set the tone for the conversation with that framing of, you know, on an individual level, a community level, state level, societal level, like my a big learning that I'm trying to embrace is multiple things being true simultaneously.
Exactly.
And that's true in my life, and that's true in our communities.
Yeah, you can live in the most beautiful place on the planet and not be happy. And those two things can be totally fine and totally true. It's part of being a human. Talk a little bit about your, you know, you mentioned right there your mental health struggle. What you were young when you realized that, you know, there was something brewing in you that wasn't unicorns and rainbows. What was that like?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of interesting in the way that you phrase that question, because it's not really that I realized there was something going on. It's just that there was something going on. And at the time, I didn't have the language to describe what I was experiencing. I didn't probably have the language of mental health, even just those two words, let alone, you know, an understanding or an awareness to describe my experience. So I don't think I had any comprehension or understanding of what was actually happening. My earliest memory of suicidal thoughts is from when I was 9 years old, and that's when I was in the 4th grade. I remember that because I was in the brick hallways of Dillon Valley Elementary School, and I think part of that memory and that reality is that's just the earliest occasion of suicidal thoughts that I remember. So I don't know when things actually started for me, or when I was different than other kids, or when I was different than my older brother. I mean, that probably goes all the way back to being a baby and him sleeping through the night and me being a pain for my parents in just about every way. But I think for me, all the way from a young age, those struggles were kind of I think that the through line between struggling when I was 9 years old, or I'm 30 now, so 2 decades later, is those struggles were happening in secret and in silence. And I was trying to hide them from everyone. I think that's, when we're talking about mental health struggles, or for me personally, suicidal ideation, that ability to hide it from society, the ability to hide it from my family or friends, is why I was able to, avoid facing that reality for a couple decades. And I think that that's an important understanding. I get a lot of questions and talk to a lot of people who, want to better understand how they can help their family members or their friends or their community members. And it's first you have to understand, people like me are really good at hiding it. And personally, I got really good at hiding it, and I got really good at denying that side of my reality through perhaps outward perception, outward success, external validation. And for me, that primarily came in the form of skiing. I mean, even, to stick with the theme, if you ask my brother, who's 2 years older, when he knew that I was just different on skis, it was when we were really young. Just from taking risks, skiing faster, jumping off everything I could. And back then, that was probably more of a desire, underlying desire to seek out positive chemicals and hormones to give myself some emotional control, even if it was just fleeting for 10, 15 seconds of taking that risk on skis. But then as I grew up, especially starting into middle school, but like really in high school, was seeking that external validation of success through skiing. And I think that's representative of our communities as well. I grew up in a community where skiing was the main focus in every which way, culturally, socially, economically. Obviously, you know, in places like Summit County, Colorado, everything revolves around sliding on snow. And so to be having success, you know, like the first time I won money skiing was 15 years old, and you know, getting sponsors and you know, landing in Powder Magazine, all this stuff, like it's very understandable when I like look back at myself and I have some empathy for myself of like why that was so easy to gravitate to, and not just like have that external validation to kind of like you know, give me some self-worth, but like also like why I kept pursuing it, why I put value on it for myself. But like the reality of all of that is, and a perfect example is that external validation is never the cure, the antidote to internal turmoil. And yeah, so like I think that, you know, we can take this a lot of different directions, but I think whenever I'm talking about these things and whenever I'm sharing my story, I would like want to do it in a way that's relatable to other people, and I think that skiing is like a good example of what we have here in Colorado, and obviously a good example for communities like mine. But that external validation can come in any different form. It can come through career success or financial success. I mean, even I hear myself using the term success, like however we define that, perhaps in a flawed way. Like a lot of us can use that to mask what's really going on inside and avoid dealing with it.
Yeah, and from all external looks on the outside, Drew Petersen, 16, 17, 18 years old, you're on the cover of magazines. You're probably one of the better skiers in that valley, you know, and you're top of your class too. You graduated number 2 at Summit High, right? I mean, you know, it must have felt pretty good, you know, from the outside. Everyone's giving you, you know, you got it together, but you know, when you woke up in the middle of the night, that didn't matter, right? You were having that inner turmoil was starting to bubble up and even eclipse what people were seeing from the outside, right?
Yeah, it's in this setting, it's probably good to make that point. It's not like I was just having athletic success. Like I was successful in most everything that I was doing. Academic success was like
Did you have the long hair in high school?
I've had long hair like pretty much my whole
You
life.
were a lion in high school, huh? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and I don't know, it still feels funny, like now with this like reckoning or like reassessment of where I get my validation is like at the time, like, yeah, I was in like Powder Magazine's like top 20 skiers 18 and under in the world, while simultaneously I was like ranked first in my class academically. And then I ended up being the salutatorian because I took enough community college classes so that I could finish a semester early so that I could go film for ski movies. And
Wow.
because I didn't have like the weighted GPA the last semester, I ended up like second in my class. But like, I think like back then it was more like, less like there was a lot going on in the background and more like, my experience just didn't match up with what it looked like outwardly. So like when I was in high school, like I was like friendly with everyone, but I didn't really like have like any like real friends. Like I didn't feel like I had, you know, like best friends who I could talk to. And that's, you know, when I look back at little things like that, that's been a theme through my life. That's been an indicator of, you know, always feeling different. And that stems like, you know, all the way back from elementary school, of knowing that I was different from other kids and that there was all this to hide. And I think like as that like went on too, like I like have a lot of compassion for myself, like whether it was a younger version of me or the adult version of me. It's like, of course, like getting that validation through academic success, athletic success, you know, like, and then like going on into kind of the realm of ski media through ski movies, magazine covers, you know, 1 million likes on social media, but none of that matters. I had like this moment that was kind of neat. Like I think like a year or two ago, I landed a cover of Backcountry magazine. And like magazine covers don't matter as much anymore, which is ironic to say, like when we're, you know, here for the Colorado Sun, like print ain't dead. So like maybe it should matter more than it used to. But I like landed this cover and I was like, cool. Like it didn't do anything for me. I was like, I mean, yeah, that's a sick photo. Like, I'm glad they agreed, but like, whatever. I like texted a screenshot to my brother, and that was it. Like, didn't really feel the need to tell anyone. Yeah, didn't get like a rush of anything.
Is that good?
Yeah, I think it is good. Like, I was just like, I was happy for my friend who was the photographer. I was like, oh, sweet, dude, you got a cover. Like, and I think that's like the evolution and growth from a younger me, like really thriving on that external validation.
So, pro skiers, you know, the ski crew, we like to have fun, like to keep it light, party, rage, you know, ski hard, play hard, party hard, that whole vibe. You broke that model a little bit with your first movie. I call it the most important ski movie ever made. Talk a little bit about how that was received. Well, talk a little bit about the movie, and then a little bit of the, I wouldn't call it fallout, but what was some of the reaction as you started to bring, you know, this movie out, where you revealed a lifetime of mental health struggles, you know, and shocked a lot of people who just knew you superficially, including myself. You know, I'd met you, I'd interviewed you. It floored me. You're such a master of concealment. But, you know, and you really broke open a dam that has, you know, it continues to flow. We see movies coming out now, Paradox and all that stuff. Like, you know, we are openly talking about mental health struggles in mountain communities. Alaska, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah. What are they similar for? The Rocky Mountains. What are they also similar for? The top states of suicide. You know, there's something going on at altitude, and you were one of the first to bust that open. And I'm wanting you to talk a little bit about reaction.
Yeah, to kind of like explain a little bit backstory-wise, for me personally, I had what I call a cookie cutter ski career of movies, magazines, social media, cool videos. It's going great. But then when like my struggles kind of came to a T in a sense, I had a sequence of events in my life, near-death accident, followed by like my life just spiraling out of control. I went deeper and deeper into depressive and suicidal episodes. And I got to a place where I got closer and closer to taking my own life.
How long ago was this?
That was, I mean, like the spiral is probably best described as starting May 10th, 2017, when I had a near-death accident in the mountains. But then really, like, I mean, that continued on for, 4 years in some ways. Like, I'm still navigating some of it constantly, every day. And but really like in 2018, 2019 was when I like got really close to ending my own life and had to reckon with that, and ultimately chose to live. And I think like one just like side note, because the point of this is to normalize these conversations, and I think a lot of people who haven't experienced these things firsthand can't comprehend or understand like the decision to live, to stay alive, is not like a 1 or 2 time thing. Like, yeah, the closest I ever got, I was sitting on the edge of my bed alone at 2 a.m. all alone, and I had like literally in my hands the decision to end it or not. But like what came along with that, like in those years of like 2018, 2019, was thousands more decisions over the course of my lifetime, tens of thousands of decisions to live, tens of thousands of decision points where, you know, on a range from very casually thinking about killing myself to very seriously having the method right there in front of me.
You tell stories about climbing to the top of a mountain, you know, like, and getting to the top of a mountain and being, you know, consumed with a dark thought, you know, at these spots where you're literally on top of the world.
Yeah, what Jason's referencing there is like a story that I've told, kind of like from a specific occurrence. I was running this ultra marathon ridge traverse. It was like 32 miles long and across 28 different summits. And I was on the last summit, all alone. I did the whole thing alone. You know, in hindsight, like, probably makes a little sense why I was trying to do it alone. But yeah, I was standing up there on that last summit at almost exactly midnight and just thought about jumping off. It was like 300-foot cliffs off one side of the summit. And I chose not to, but like, that's exactly what I mean. Like that occurrence is, you know, that sounds terrifying and serious, and it is. But I've been there thousands of times. And wow. So like while I'm living all of this, and ultimately got to a place where I decided that I was going to ask for help and that I wanted to get better and follow through on that. Like pretty early on that, I knew that I wanted to use my experience to help other people. Like probably like pretty much immediately, like when I convinced myself that I was gonna stick around, I knew like, you know, in that same moment, whether that moment was a decision point once, like I'm talking about, or that moment was months and years of these struggles and of getting help. Like I knew in that moment that I wanted to use everything through the course of my life to help other people and shift the culture of my community and our communities. And I say everything in my life because it was, it's all the experiences and it's all the stories and all the emotions and feelings that I've, you know, navigated through my entire life. And then it's also that I spent basically my whole life building a ski career, which like I've got mixed feelings on now, like to be completely honest. Like it feels very frivolous, but at the same time, like it gave me a lot of direction and passion and probably kept me alive. But in our communities, in the state of Colorado, in America, in the world, we prop up athletes on this like kind of unrealistic pedestal. Like I've been celebrated literally my entire life, all the way back to like when I was a little kid, for how good I am at sliding down snow on pieces of wood and plastic and fiberglass. Like that's pretty funny. Seriously, like, and then at the same time, like I put myself in that position and I really did spend, you know, all the way back to since I was like 15 and it went down the track of like building a professional career. At this point I'm 30, I still ski professionally, so that's half my life. I knew that I was in a position where I could use that platform and that pedestal to help other people. And so that's when I decided, with all those life decisions, like, what do I know how to do? Like, what can I do to impact other people and impact our communities? And it's make ski movies. That's what I know how to do. That's what I'm good at. That's what's going to connect with people. And the reason that I did that is because we need like a common interest or passion as an entry point to these conversations. Like if I walk out on the DU campus right now and like try to talk to somebody about suicide, like it's gonna be like a political campaigner standing outside of King Soopers. Like nobody wants to talk to me. But if we're talking about skiing, everybody lights up and they'll come to an event. They'll watch a movie, They want to be a part of that. So yeah, that's what making ski films offered the opportunity for. And so in 2021, in 2021, I made my first ski film about mental health called Ups and Downs, which was a very simple concept. It's kind of like esoteric and abstract in a way where we just mirror the mountains and valleys of ski touring metaphorically with the ups and downs of my personal mental health journey. And then over the course of...
Crushingly powerful movie. I would recommend anyone watch that movie. It's 30 minutes, and it's the sort of thing that resonates for the rest of your life. I will never forget the first time I saw that movie.
It's only 19 minutes.
19 minutes.
Which was a struggle, because I think there's 8 hours of interview footage that we boiled down into 19 minutes. And like, I'm also a writer, and it would be a lot easier to write a 19-minute script, but like, it's not as real as if you just get it raw from an interview and you speak to the specifics. And when I made that film, before I like committed to making that film, before we went out and started filming, and also I'm very proud, there's like really good powder skiing in it, which is really fun to make.
Great ski movie.
We like totally lucked out. I filmed the entire powder segment of that whole film in 1 week, which was just like such luck. And you can tell I still have fun skiing. But before I made that film, I was in this like really awkward kind of decision point of like, I know that I want to do this. I know that I have the ability and the power and the position and the story to help a lot of people. But then I don't know what the reaction is going to be. I don't know what the response is going to be. This might end my ski career. This might put me on an island completely alone when I've felt alone my whole life, and I'm afraid of being so alone. And a mentor of mine helped me get to a place where ultimately, like, I had to be okay with that. I had to be completely fine with that. If anyone didn't agree with what I was doing or wasn't supportive or didn't see, the reason or the mission and passion and belief in what I was doing, then I'm going to swear I'm sorry. Then fuck them. That's all it came down to, was fuck them. And there's no more eloquent way to say that. And that is where I got myself to. So I made this movie, and I brought it into the Stoke-centric world of skiing and of ski movies. And the first time that I ever showed this film was here in Denver at the Oriental Theater, in a true ski movie premiere environment where everybody's crushing beers and cheering for loud cliff drops in the film before me. And it was, I like look back at that and I think I was so nervous, but then I also had this just like confidence in my stomach of like, no, like this is worth it no matter what happens 19 minutes from now. And we played a film, and immediately as soon as I get on stage, was met with a standing ovation.
So awesome, Drew. I remember we just saw Feel It All, your second movie, which again explores this. And I went to Summit High School. It was a couple months ago, and it was same hall where Drew went to school, and just this roaring applause after the movie. Everybody's on their feet. I mean, you've hit it. You've hit the nerve. You've found a way to be celebrated that's not about skiing anymore. You know, it's bigger. And
Yeah.
you know what? It's tough to talk about, but we have to talk about it. We have to use these words. We have to get Drew up here and get him crying, you know, because this is how we're all going to go home to our communities and carry this.
Yeah. One of the most beautiful parts of my life is how much I cry. I spent like a decade without crying a tear, emotionally or physically. Like everything I was going through couldn't make me cry. Emotional pain, what was happening in my own mind, physical pain, dislocating my hip, broken bones. None of it made me cry. And I cry a lot now. And I'm really grateful for that and proud of that, because it means that I'm feeling the human experience. The nature of like telling these stories is like, this is my life. Like there's not like a beginning or end or middle or simple story structure. But when I started talking about this stuff publicly, I had kind of this like a thesis of, if we build a culture where we celebrate people for honoring and prioritizing mental health in the same way that we celebrate people for getting rad in the mountains, then lives will be saved and our communities will thrive.
Yes.
And that is like, that vision, that thesis is like what I'm seeing and what I'm living now. It's pretty wild, like to be pretty much exactly like 3 years after that experience at the Oriental Theater. I made a new film that I released this year called Feel It All. It's all based in Colorado, which is cool. And I'm very proud of.
Should be. It's an incredible.
And Jason has a sticker. I'm also proud of that.
That's a rad sticker. That's a reminder. I mean, we need to, this isn't all about feeling good. You know, the obstacle is the journey. You know, the challenge is the story. And that's where we are. And the mountains need this message. We need to talk about this. You know?
Yeah, we really do.
My daughter Molly was 13 when her best friend committed suicide, Olivia.
The worst part of this, and the most important part of this, it's like that experience for you, for your daughter, for her friend, for her friend's family. My experiences as a kid, all of it is normal.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind.
My daughters have been to 3 memorials for people who committed suicide at their school in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So I live back in Colorado now. I kind of bounced around the West. primarily chasing snow for a long time, for like a decade. Moved back home about a year ago, back to Summit County. And now I'll like go into the local high school and whatnot. I've been in there to like speak and like, like a full school assembly style. But I'll also just like go in to like my old teachers' classrooms and just like pop in and like hang out with the kids, chat with them, watch one of my films and like just have a conversation. And when I go in there, one, it feels weird to be a 30-year-old man with a beard walking through a high school. And I'm more nervous to like choose what I'm gonna wear when I go into a high school than like anything else I do publicly. I know I'm gonna get judged. But one of the things that I do is my alma mater, Summit High School, has a memorial garden in the back for students who died. I go back there and just like look at the kids who died when I was in high school and remind myself like who we do this for, and also like what could have been my outcome. One of the like really difficult parts of all this for me, that I like still I like reckon and contemplate with like all the time, is like, how do we tell these stories and share this in an impactful manner without sensationalizing or without sensationalizing or like taking advantage of stories. But I want to share this one. When I was struggling and getting help going through therapy, unpacking, what I've been hiding my whole life, and healing and growing, it coincided with the pandemic, which was awful in a lot of ways and really helpful in a lot of ways too. It felt like when I was working on myself, it felt like the world wasn't racing by without me. But also it made everything worse for all of us. And so I was back home in Summit at the start of the pandemic, and in March of 2020, in the span of 16 days, less than 3 weeks, 2 students at my alma mater, Summit High School, died by suicide. And in those same 16 days, 2 more students attempted suicide and lived. And like that was a very pivotal inflection point in my life, because I saw myself in those kids and I saw what could have been my outcome. I genuinely have no idea if I would have survived a global pandemic or survived the realities of childhood today. And that was when I decided that I was going to get myself to a place, like hard stop, that I was going to help those kids. And I would get myself to a place where I could share my story. And that's what I mean, that stuff's normal.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I'm much older than you, but I never knew anyone committed suicide. And my girls are 13 and 15, and they're dealing with tragedy that I don't even know now, 55. And it's unbelievable what we've asked them to deal with. And it's a soldier at war sort of mentality that they have. They lose friends to suicide. It happens. And they're freaking kids. It's unbelievable. But sort of change gear, take a breath here. You went and got therapy, and you've always advocated, you're like, go get help, talk to people and get professional help. It's one of the messages that's in ups and downs. It's a message and feel it all. And one of the things that you one of the truly unique messages that you bring to mountain towns is skiing is not the answer. Skiing is not therapy. Don't think that because you're going skiing 120 days a year, you're healthy and it's going to be all good and, wonderful. There's, and that's a rare message in a ski town, right? Like, we all think like, oh, I'm feeling bad, I'm down, I'm gonna go ski. And you make it pretty clear that skiing, well, of course, that's wonderful. We're all outside getting fresh air and getting physical exercise. It is not a replacement for, true mental health care. It can be a balm, it can be a tool for helping, but, and that's an interesting concept, because if you go to just about anywhere in a ski town, and we all have theories on why this is going on in a ski town, but you see the incidents of these tragedies. They're in the spring when this lift stopped turning. When that stops, people realize, wow, I was using that as a crutch. My issues are not going away. And, I mentioned when we sat down, a lot of people move to the mountains. And I think there's this mentality when they move to the mountains, it's going to be so good when I get there. I'm going to ski all the time. And all these issues from Cleveland, Ohio aren't going to be in, Aspen, Colorado. They're, and it's going to be awesome. And then you get there and you realize that your suitcase is exactly the same. That baggage doesn't matter the geography. And I think, and then it just sort of resonates. And a lot of people have fled to the highest point they can find, and then they're running out of a place to go. But talk a little bit about how that's been received and that message, that idea that it's awesome to go skiing. And it's a great way to get your head on right, and, but it's not treating the root cause of what is going on, right?
Yeah. The like exact way that I word it is that so like skiing's my primary sport, but like running is like just as important in my life at this point. Is that skiing and running can be therapeutic, but in no way, shape, or form are they a replacement for real therapy or real mental or behavioral health care. And that is a radical statement and a radical opinion to share in our communities. And there's probably no one more radical to share it than a professional skier. And on a personal level, the reason that I share that is to explain an element of my experience in my story, that skiing used to be the only coping mechanism in my entire life. And that is the only way I could deal with any struggles or hardships in my life. And a lot of my evolution has been reworking that relationship with sport, with skiing, with physical movement, particularly in the mountains. And now it's an evolution away from using it as an escape and using it more as a way to immerse myself in my own experience. And I view physical movement, skiing and running in this case, as, like one or two tools within what I call my mental health toolkit. And the beauty of that is that having a built-out toolkit and knowing how to take care of myself and having professional, real health care, including, I'm not like fixed. I'm not good. So like I continue on with talk therapy, continue on with psychiatric medication, regular appointments with my neurologist, and like continuing on that path of like real traditional therapy. But then also I have a renovated lifestyle built on a foundation of sleep and healthier practices and healthier way of life overall. I'm 4.5 years sober.
That's exactly how long I had.
Heck yeah. I have a daily meditation, gratitude practice, journaling a lot, connecting with people socially, especially on a deep, meaningful level. The list goes on, which is really cool, and I think it's proof. Like, that toolkit gets bigger and bigger, and it's like awesome that I like even forget pieces that are in there. Because it's so big that I know how to tap into those things in a myriad of ways. And what that has empowered me to do is build a healthier relationship with physical movement. And so skiing can be a lot of different things. Running can be a lot of different things. At points, it is a tool within that mental health toolkit where I will go for a run because I need some positive chemicals in my brain, or I need the bilateral movement of running in a rhythmic way to help work through some specific thoughts. But no longer is it an escape, and no longer is it the only way to navigate hardship or emotional turmoil. And sharing that message, like I said, is kind of radical. And it's interesting. I kind of thought like it would rub more people the wrong way. And I think it does a little bit, particularly people who have built their entire lives around these pursuits. I get it. I built my entire life around skiing for a long time. But really, the response has been very positive, and it's been pretty cool. Some of the people who it has kind of helped them redefine their relationship with sport. I think like I kind of expected that to, resonate with, people who struggle like me. But then it resonates kind of across the board. And like I was skiing with the Western State free ride team like a year or two ago in Crescent Butte. And one of these kids who's like freshman in college he's like, yeah, man, I've really been thinking about how you say that skiing's not therapy. And it's been cool because I started going to therapy for this. And now skiing's a lot more fun. And I realized like what I needed to go to therapy for wasn't that serious, but by doing so, like I don't have to, go ski alone and forget about it. Or like I received these messages on Instagram that are like a 45-year-old man saying like, I asked for help and I went to therapy because I realized that I was using skiing and climbing like in an abusive way. I received this message from probably around that age, like a female ski guide in her 40s who like guides heli skiing in Alaska to the same effect, and that has helped her redefine her relationship with skiing, and that she's having more fun now.
That's the irony of it, is that you hear this over and over, that when you start to shift that perspective on what you're doing, you can actually have more fun. And it's hard to imagine. I can have more fun skiing if you don't put so much weight on it. Like, oh, I gotta go get my head on straight. Or let's go enjoy this day. It's a beautiful concept. And it in many ways it can make you squeeze more joy out of what you enjoy doing, which is an interesting concept to really chew on, like that kid said.
Yeah,
from Western.
It is. I have more fun skiing and running than I ever have, which is pretty awesome. Especially like for being like a happy, giggling little kid from skiing. I have so much fun now, and it doesn't really have to be like skiing powder in some far off locale. Like it can be like skiing the lift line under Paolo Vicini at A Basin, like same lines that I've skied my whole life, and just get so jazzed and like immersed and having fun with it, like, and that's awesome. Kind of a little bit of shift in this conversation is I wanted to circle back to to kind of like the response on the films.
Yeah.
Um,
So you've been touring recently with Feel It All, which is a fantastic story about Drew going up and running the Leadville Trail 100 in sub 24 and skiing a lot of those peaks up in the Swatch too. So beautiful, beautiful film, incredible cinematography. It's really beautiful. But again, as equally compelling as Ups and Downs, and just it's an emotional story. Like you stir us when we watch that one. It's a good job.
Yeah, I pull no punches. I think that's like one of the messages or like successes of my advocacy is that I pull no punches. I go all the way deep. And the reason that I do that is that when I was struggling, I was looking to other people for inspiration or, some semblance of hope. I found myself looking to other professional athletes and reading their stories and resonating with them. But for the most part, those stories do not go all the way deep to talk about suicidal thoughts or to talk about the really honest, lonely despair of depression. Usually when professional athletes are sharing these stories, it's packaged in a very digestible way that, unlike my life, has a beginning and an end and a solution to their struggles. And that often left me feeling more alone because I was like, if there's this person who's opening up about this and the societal response is like, oh my gosh, it's amazing that you share this so that others can feel the permission to struggle. And I'm like, I feel way worse than that. Like, and part of that is like the nature of feeling terminally unique. But that's why I pull no punches, is because I know that there are people out there like me who need to hear not just like, oh, I've had depression and I've gotten over it. Like, no, I have struggled with suicidal thoughts to an extreme degree, and I have gotten help, and I know what it's like to feel hope and growth and healing, and I still struggle, and I still have to put effort into navigating all of this. And that's one of my core messages.
Yeah, it's one of the messages that resonates. Like,
Yeah.
you're not done at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And you're not done at the finish line. And you're not done with the magazine cover. And you're not done with the awards and the accolades. Like, we keep going. And that's one of the most resonant messages in your films and your talks and your presentations. And I love it when you talk about the people that come up to you afterwards. I've watched you sit there and spend 2 hours after a 30-minute movie talking with all these people, and they wait in line and they want to share, and they say, I don't know what they're saying, but they really are thankful. There's a lot of embraces, there's a lot of hugs, there's tears, and what you're doing is you're providing us a way to talk about things we don't want to talk about. As newspaper people, we don't write about suicides. We just don't. Like, I don't know. It's a policy that lasts forever, but when you write about one, there's a fear that it'll keep going. And that's sad. I think we should write about all that stuff. The ripple that goes through a community when someone leaves is the one that lasts forever. The heartache lasts forever. And, we got to talk about it the way it is. And you're doing it. And when those kids come up and, I saw at Summit High when you debuted Feel It All, it was super compelling. People were coming up. There must have been 50 people just lined up waiting for their chance. That's got to feel good, right?
Yeah. It feels really good because I see so much myself in every single one of those people. And I know that each of those people can become the next ripple effect, within their community or within our community. There's a lot that comes with it.
I bet.
The like nature of all of this is the success and the impact of what I do is rooted in two things. One, vulnerability, and two, authenticity. Those two words are overused in our society. And so when I use those two words, I feel kind of weird because vulnerability. I think that we also live in a society where performative vulnerability is rewarded but not impactful. Real vulnerability creates space for others to be honest and genuine in their own experience. Vulnerability begets vulnerability, and that means that somebody has to create the space for our community and for others as individuals to be vulnerable about themselves, about their experiences, and in a way that can help other people. And if there's I have thought for so long, how to share this more effectively and come up with a better metaphor for it. But I still think the best metaphor is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Indiana Jones has to cross that canyon and there's really bad special effects and you see him walk out on this invisible bridge and you're well, if this movie was 30 years later, the special effects would be way better. That's what my advocacy, my films, what I'm doing is I have to believe that there's that invisible bridge. And that invisible bridge is what I was met with 3 years ago at the Oriental Theater in Denver. But I have to take that step so that other people know it's there. One of the difficult parts of that and the realities of vulnerability is that those reps and that success of it or inviting other people in doesn't always, make it easier to do again. It's still very difficult. And it's a lot more difficult for people who don't have those practice reps. But even for me personally, that vulnerability is still difficult. This week, so this new film, Feel It All, I've been working on this for 2.5 years. And the first time I showed it, like Jason was talking about, was the last week of May. My old principal donated the auditorium of Summit High School to show it, and A-Base in my home hill sponsored the event. It was free, open to the community. We partnered with our local mental health nonprofit, Building Hope Summit County. It was awesome. 300 people there, and got another standing ovation. And it was wild because it's a lot of my elementary school teachers and people who have known me my whole life. And then there's a lot of people who I've never met before, but who have been in the community and have looked to me as a source of inspiration or, a reason to go ski the lift line underneath Polly. And over the past few months, ever since May, I've been sharing this film in a lot of different contexts. So more community events like that. I've been doing these group runs followed by a film screening and using those group runs as an opportunity to form connection and community. And I've started sharing it at film festivals, which is really fun. Last week we shared it at the Breck Film Festival. It aired at the Riverwalk Center, paired with this Nat Geo doc about wingsuiting and base jumping. And that's back to that thesis. We're putting the conversation of mental health on the same level as jumping off a 1,000-foot cliff in a wingsuit. That's pretty cool. And then last week, I actually one other version of these events I do. This public speaking is one of my careers, and I've shared this in corporate speaking gigs. So last week. My calendar's a blur right now. Maybe last week. I was in Des Moines, Iowa, and I shared this film and these messages in Des Moines, Iowa, and they resonated on just as deep of a level as they do in a ski town. And then this week, I started this ski film tour, that goes back to that traditional ski movie premiere, Stoke-centric, crushing beers style environment. And the first show of this ski film tour was this week in Bend, Oregon. And at this point, I have so many practice reps in sharing myself, sharing my story, hundreds of media interviews, dozens of speaking engagements, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50, 60 film screenings that I'm actually there for. And I found myself on Tuesday night in Bend after I introduced the film, and I walked out into the lobby like more nervous than I'd been in a long time. And those nerves are what I'm speaking to, that vulnerability, just because we do it once or we do it multiple times, it doesn't mean that it doesn't take courage, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't take strength to do it again. I was really nervous on Tuesday because it was back in that ski film environment. And it was back just with the ski community. I've been a part of the ski community since I was 1.5 years old, and that's the community that I'm still the most nervous to share in, probably because I'm so deep in it, but also because that's the community where that Stoke-centric and good vibes only mentality and ski hard, party hard, stay hard mentality is the strongest. And that's where it's still scary to be vulnerable. And, in what I do, I have to remember to not tie my worth or the success of what I'm doing to that external validation. I can't tie it to saving one person's life, and I can't tie it to the response from a crowd. But on Tuesday night, I got probably one of the most enthusiastic standing ovations I've ever received. 3 years into this, it's still just like that first night at the Oriental Theater. And it still feels weird to be celebrated for this, but it's still what I believe we need to change things. And so when I received this standing ovation, I found myself looking to the side, trying to not look at anyone, because that's what I do every single time. Because I still don't believe that I'm worthy of this. I still don't believe that I'm worthy of love from others or from myself. And so I found myself looking away. And instead of saying thank you on the microphone and trying to get them to stop, I put the microphone down next to my side, and I walked to the edge of the stage, and I squared up, and I looked people in the eyes, and I tried to receive that energy and love. And it's so uncomfortable for me to do that. But if I can do that, and I can grow into doing that more, then we're able to create a cycle of that energy and love. We're able to make that invisible bridge from Raiders of the Lost Ark visible. We're able to build a bridge where that vulnerability for other people is going to be a lot easier. And they're going to be able to have the faith that they're going to be celebrated and supported for taking care of themselves and for building a culture within our communities that honors and prioritizes mental health. And that cultural shift is what we need. I started that by saying authenticity and vulnerability are two overused words. Authenticity, when I'm at those corporate speaking gigs, a lot of that stuff's in the business world or entrepreneurship world oftentimes. And my joke with those people is that we got a lot of brilliant marketing brains in here. And authenticity is a lot like the new coconut water. You see a lot of people talking about it, not a lot of people drinking it. It lands better in a business audience, I promise.
But what it takes is just being fucking real. That's what we need more of to change the culture of mental health and suicide. That's what we need to change the culture of anything at all. Being real, pulling no punches, and going all the way deep.
Thank you, Drew. That was incredible. It's important what you're doing.
Thanks, brother.